In this demonstration, I'll show you how to add ArcGIS Online content to a map in ArcGIS Pro. All right, so in this case, I've got a map that I've already created. It doesn't really have any content other than, of course, the base map, which is an imagery layer. We've got the catalog pane open, and I've already selected the portal tab. And of course, I'm logged in, so most of my buttons here are going to be active. And so at this point, what I'm going to do is just search for some data based on what I'm going to search for here is wildfire data. So I'm going to go to the ArcGIS Online collection and just type in wildfires for my search term. And you can see that brings back a number of different data sets, and you see a lot of different icons here. And if you mouse over any of these icons, it'll give you an idea of a little bit more information about the layer, right? So it'll tell you what type of layer it is, the owner of the layer, the path to the layer. And so you can see that for this particular layer, that's going to be a feature layer. If I mouse over this BLM, National Fire Risk Assessment, you can see it's a tile-based layer, the ownership, path, information. So I've got lots of different things here, a lot of different content. You can kind of scroll through here just to kind of get an idea of the content. Of course, we talked about this in the last demonstration, but when you're accessing the ArcGIS Online collection, this is content that, in theory, anybody could provide an item for ArcGIS Online content. These are lots of different data sets. They come from all sorts of different places, and you just have to be careful with these data sets because you don't know exactly where they're coming from. You don't know the maintenance history necessarily, how often those data sets are being updated. And of course, you can't necessarily rely on these being available to you at all times because remember, these are data sets that anyone could have created. And so in theory, they could take them down at any moment as well. So you just have to be careful with these data sets. Now you can also filter these out by type by going to the filter button. And so you'll notice here that you can filter by item type, date modified, date created, sharing, status. And so a common thing to do would be to filter your data by item type. So in this case, we're searching for layers, let's say. So if I click on layers, and you can sub-filter that by different types of layers as well if you'd like. But you'll notice when I click on layers, that considerably narrowed down what I have available to me. Now, here's an interesting layer called USA Current Wildfires. You can see that this is an Esri live feed. And so this, just by kind of taking a look at some of the clues, I can kind of tell that this layer is actually coming from Esri content, which is, a little bit more confidence in that data set being available to me at all times and not necessarily just disappearing on me at any point in time. Now, once you've found a layer that you want to add to a map, there are several ways you can add this content to the map. The easiest way usually is just to drag and drop. So what I'll do is use my mouse at this point simply to drag and drop this layer onto the map, and you'll see it's updating. And now I've got my new layer that's been added to the table of contents. If I expand that a little bit, you can see that this is actually a group layer, and it has two layers, one for current incidents, the other's for current perimeters. The current incidents layer is a point layer, so as you kind of scroll in here, zoom in, you'll notice that our data, this is point level data that has been symbolized based upon the size of each fire. Just like you could any other feature data set or layer, then you can also click on these layers, click on the features and do an identify operation. And what it'll do is return information that's associated with these particular wildfires at this point. So you can identify these layers as well. The perimeter information, this is going to be polygon data showing you wildfire daily fire perimeters as well as prescribed fires. And I don't have a specific one that I'm going to zoom into here. We'll just kind of zoom into this to see if it has perimeter data. Not all of them will. It just kind of depends on the size of the fire in a lot of cases. But in any case, what we have here is once I added that USA Current Wildfires layer, there's actually a group layer that contains a point feature class as well as a polygon feature class. Now the other way of doing this is to right click, right? So if you right click on a layer, you'll see you have a couple of options here. You can add the current map, which of course would do the same thing as what we did with the drag and drop. Then add to new map, that'll create a new map and then add the layer to the map. So if I select that option, then you'll notice it's created a completely new map for me, and then it loads the layers for them, that particular layer that I wanted to add. So you can drag and drop, or if you don't want to create a new map with that information, you right click and select add to new map, right? Same idea if you use any of these other collections, right? So for example, if I went to Living Atlas instead of ArcGIS Online, you know, a lot of times you're probably going to want to set your filter here. Each time you move to a different collection, you'll notice that it resets that filter. So when I moved to the Living Atlas collection, you'll notice that it reset my filter, so I no longer have the layers filter turned on. So you do have to go back and reset those filters anytime you change the collection. And so at this point, I've got a set of layers. May want to filter it again by search term. And you can see there's some duplication here, so that USA current wildfires layer that was found in ArcGIS Online is also available in Living Atlas. So there is some overlap between some of these layers. In general, your Living Atlas collection is going to contain data that Esri provides. All right, so it's Esri curated content. Sometimes they are creating those services. At other times, they may be working with other organizations that are going to host those web services. But in any event, these are layers that you generally can count on being available to you. They're not necessarily going to go away tomorrow like some other data sets might. And so in general, I have more confidence in layers that I'm pulling from the Living Atlas because I know that that's Esri curated content. And so in general, those layers are going to be there. They may change from time to time, but normally they're going to be there. And if there are going to be some changes, Esri does a pretty good job of keeping people up to date about the changes that are going to take place with particular layers. All right, so that covers it for this demonstration.